Here's a poem of mine called Christmas in the Good Old Days. I loved Christmas time, stealing holly from neighbours' fields, nicking trees from state plantations, disguising them in homemade decorations, cobbling together a crib, the donkey out of scale, the cow with a broken leg, and all the careful presents, clockwork duck, plastic tool set, blank guns, dolls that cried and piddled. Later, I took my responsibilities seriously, spent hours wrapping what was ripped open in seconds, assembled jigsaws and Lego pirate ships before dawn on cold, toy-strewn kitchen floors. For a day or two, jolly cheers. This Advent, my grown-up children asked me what I wanted. I looked at them, their children, couldn't think of anything. I'm going to read 3 poems by the English poet Wendy Cope. Cathedral Carol Service by Wendy Cope. Those of us who are not important enough to have places reserved for us, and who turned up too late to get a seat at all, stand in the nave aisles or perch on stone ledges. We shiver in the draught from the west door. We cannot see the choir, the altar, or the candles. We can barely see the words on our service sheets. But we can hear the music, and we can sing for the baby whose parents were not important enough to have a place reserved for them, and who turned up too late to get a room at all. A Christmas Song by Wendy Cope. Why is the baby crying on this his special day, when we have brought him lovely gifts and laid them on the hay? He's crying for the people who greet this day with dread, because somebody dear to them is far away or dead. For all the men and women whose love affairs went wrong, who try their best at merriment when Christmas comes along. For separated parents whose turn it is to grieve while children hang their stockings up elsewhere on Christmas Eve. For everyone whose burden carried through the year is heavier at Christmas time, the season of good cheer. That's why the baby's crying there in the cattle stall. He's crying for those people. He's crying for them all. The Christmas Life by Wendy Cope. And this poem was in response to a saying by an 8-year-old child, Josephine McKinnon. She said, "If you don't have a real tree, you don't bring the Christmas life into the house." Bring in a tree, a young Norwegian spruce. Bring hyacinths that rooted in the cold. Bring winter jasmine as its buds unfold. Bring the Christmas life into the house. Bring red and green and gold. Bring things that shine. Bring candlesticks and music, food and wine. Bring in your memories of Christmas past. Bring in your tears for all that you have lost. Bring in the shepherd boy, the ox and ass. Bring in the stillness of an icy night. Bring in the birth of hope and love and light. Bring the Christmas life into the house. Here's a poem of mine called The New Stable. And it came about when I finally, after years of promising, made a stable for the crib. The New Stable. Once I promised hand-carved figures, personal, unpolished, to replace those smiling, shop-bought gauds we took out, stood up, ignored each Christmas. I meant it, even thought it out. Background Joseph in my father's image, Mary in mother's, I can hear her giggle. Wise men, the spit of ones we chatted with on windswept hills in summers years ago. I was always too busy, too careful, too old now, scared of leaving a half set, a yearly reminder of loss. I made a stable from memories of those makeshift sheds which leaned against our houses, long gone. I worked quickly, planned nothing, sawed and drilled and fixed for 6 days, rough wood for uprights, willow walls, anxious that it look slipshod, authentic, shelter for animals and passing poor. I finished it on Christmas Eve, attached a willow roof, posted a photo on Facebook, but I'm still unsettled. I promise next year, if there is a next year, I'll carve some figures, shepherds maybe, or a disconcerted donkey. And here's a poem by the American poet E. E. Cummings, who died in 1962. He really disliked full stops, all punctuation, and capital letters. But that makes no difference when you're reading his poems. Little tree. Little tree, little silent Christmas tree, you are so little, you are more like a flower. Who found you in the green forest, and were you very sorry to come away? See, I will comfort you, because you smell so sweetly. I will kiss your cool bark and hug you safe and tight, just as your mother would, only don't be afraid. Look, the spangles that sleep all the year in the dark box, dreaming of being taken out and allowed to shine, the balls, the chains red and gold, the fluffy threads. Put up your little arms and I'll give them all to you to hold. Every finger shall have its ring, and there won't be a single place dark or unhappy. Then, when you're quite dressed, you'll stand in the window for everyone to see, and how they'll stare. Oh, but you'll be very proud, and my little sister and I will take hands, and looking up at our beautiful tree, we'll dance and sing Noel, Noel. Here's a poem of mine called Their First Christmas Tree, based on a memory from long ago in my childhood in the West. Their first Christmas tree. The countryside his commonwealth, holly, ash plants his to harvest as required, kindling in spring, mushrooms in summer, blackberries in autumn. That winter she insisted, so he took his saw into starless dark far beyond the stables, guided by barbed wire, returned with a trophy tree. They crowned it with a silver paper-covered cardboard star, hung homemade ornaments and tissue paper novelties, pretended to be happier. I bought one this Christmas daylight, sized and packaged, legal, lacking the challenge of something on the margin, the tang of trespass, infant irritant on the noisome, vain empire of excess. Here's a little poem by Timothy Toker, an American poet. Help wanted. Santa needs new reindeer. The first bunch has grown old. Dasher has arthritis. Comet hates the cold. Prancer's sick of staring at Dancer's big behind. Cupid married Blitzen, and Donder lost his mind. Dancer's mad at Vixen for stepping on his toes. Vixen's being thrown out. She laughed at Rudolph's nose. If you are a reindeer, we hope you will apply. There's just one tricky part. You must know how to fly. Home for Christmas by Tommy Murray. In this mist-drowned December dawn, the loftier ruins still shiver in the wings, while the skyline has yet to announce itself, and where the old bridge leapfrogs across the river, yesterday's downpour hurries away, as if trying to catch the last post for America, perhaps Canada. On the dank pavement, the wet mongrel has seen it all before. Market Street, half asleep. Mill Street, half awake. Castle Street, where 1,000 curtained windows seem to watch my every move. And I alight to the sound of fog falling softly on cobblestones. This is a poem about all those predictable presents at Christmas. The socks, the pullover, the ties, the scarves, the toiletries. Christmas Thank Yous by Mick Gower. Dear Auntie, oh, what a nice jumper. I've always adored powder blue and fancy thinking of orange and pink for the stripes. How clever of you. Dear Uncle, the soap is terrific. So useful and such a kind thought. And how did you guess that I just used the last of the soap that last Christmas brought? Dear Gran, many thanks for the hankies. Now I really can't wait for the flu. And the daisies embroidered in red round the M for Michael. How thoughtful of you. Dear cousin, what socks? And the same sort you wear. So you must be the last word in style. And I'm certain you're right, that luminous green will make me stand out a mile. Dear sister, I quite understand your concern. It's a risk sending jam in the post. But I think I pulled out all the big bits of glass, so it won't taste too sharp on my toast. Dear Grandad, don't fret. I'm delighted, so don't think your gift will offend. I'm not at all hurt that you gave up this year and just sent me a fiver to spend. Another Christmas poem, this time by Anonymous. Long, long ago. Wind through the olive trees softly did blow round little Bethlehem, long, long ago. Sheep on the hillside lay whiter than snow. Shepherds were watching them, long, long ago. Then from the happy sky, angels bent low, singing their songs of joy, long, long ago. For in a manger bed, cradled we know, Christ came to Bethlehem, long, long ago. There is a tradition that on Christmas Eve, the youngest child in the family should put the baby Jesus in the manger in the crib. Christmas Eve ritual. For 18 years, she put the knitted baby in the knitted manger on Christmas Eve, as the youngest child should, the baby of the family. We hardly noticed her grow up, but one year realized that she was as old as Mary was when she put her baby in the manger that Christmas Eve. She looks forward to when he will be sturdy enough on his adventurous feet to carry the small figure to the crib, place it where it belongs, in the warm cradle at the very centre. And here is a very famous Christmas poem. Its name is A Visit from St. Nicholas, but it's often called 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. It was written by Clement Clarke Moore, and it was first published as long ago as 1823. A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestling all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mam in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blixen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys was flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprung to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."